Look good here. And you're good to roll, Mr. David.
Am I recording?
You're recording.
That went quick. I think it was recording this whole time. No? Did I stop
no idea.
it?
No, it's only been recording for 11 seconds.
11 seconds.
So you're good. Ben, how in the world are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. The last time we talked, you were going to retire and travel the world and enjoy life and do all this stuff. But as usual, the automotive industry drew you back in. What happened?
I've always told people, once you're in this industry, you'll never get out. You try, but you can't. Yeah, it lasted about 72 hours. Got very bored with retirement very quickly. And, had a lot of people call me saying, hey, what if? And these folks at Repairify, I had a few conversations with them, very excited about some of the things they're working on and doing. And I said, this could be fun.
Right.
So here I am. I'm all of a couple weeks in and still drinking from a fire hose while I'm learning all about it, but I'm really excited.
That sounds awesome. And so you had a long career with a information provider.
Yeah.
And had been there for years. And so what has this shift been like for you? I mean, that's a pretty big shift, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because my history started off as a mechanic. So I was a tech and then went into training and then went into product management. But for years, I was all about diagnostics. I mean, that was really my core. Actually, you probably don't know, but years and years ago, I designed the diagnostic system for Harley-Davidson motorcycles.
Really?
And they're still using a variation of that today. But
holy cow! I did not know that.
So it was almost like the bigger shift was when I went from that into kind of my last role, which was in repair information, shop management systems, and things like that, which was awesome. Learned a whole new line of business and a whole new set of products. And as you know me, I've always been focused, no matter what the product is, on trying to get the shops more efficient, get them where they're making more money and doing a better service for their customers.
And what's neat about that is I think that, especially last time we talked, I realized that you still had some of that tech perspective and you knew what it was like to be on the other side of that. And you knew what it was like when the shop wasn't running well, right? You had experienced that.
Well, and one of the things that I always wanted to guard against, still do, is the, getting that tower syndrome where you think you know more. I mean, even in my last job, I'd drag my people out every quarter into the shops and just go talk to people and just go observe and listen to them, and whether it was about our products or just a problem they were facing, so we could see if we could, help out.
Right, exactly, in that perspective to be able to do something about it. So Greg Buckley was in here just a few minutes ago when we were recording, and he said, hey, what is Repairify? And I said, well, I don't know, I've been asked that a lot. So what is Repairify then?
Well, and the reason you might not have heard about Repairify as much as some other companies is they are actually not a newcomer to this industry. They have been participating in the collision side for about 15 years.
Okay.
Off and on. And they, so their basic claim to fame is they patented a technology that allows them to give remote access into a vehicle. So imagine, if you will, and especially on the collision side, we all know they're not as current as the mechanical side on using scan tools and diagnostics and all that. But on the other side, they're being pressured by insurance companies and other folks to become more like that. They don't like the subletting. It means you got to pay for a rental car for more days, and it's longer to get the car back to the original owner and all that. So enter in Repairify, who says, you know what? If you've got one of our devices, it's just it could be a scan tool or just a standalone kind of a dedicated device that plugs into the OBD2 port.
Right.
We cannot, because this is the other part of it. On the collision side, they're very, especially since some things happened over the last decade with some repairs that were not OE authorized. They're very anal about making sure that whatever gets done on that car, they've got OEM data that supports it was done properly.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember, and we talk about it all the time, as the Eagle collision case.
Right. That's the one.
That's the one that shook everybody up.
It shook everybody up.
And rightfully so. Right. Like that was because I look at it as we are the professionals that's protecting the motoring public.
Right.
And if I take a car somewhere to get it fixed, I would expect if my child took that car somewhere to get it fixed, I would expect it to be done properly, right? That's a pretty important aspect.
So they thought they were doing it properly, though.
No, they did not think they were doing it properly. And the court case showed, when they went back and looked, the court case showed that they went to the insurance company and said, hey, this is not the book repair for this car. But they repaired it anyway because the insurance company said to repair it anyway. And then that's what got them all in trouble. So
Did the dealership, I know the dealership paid out. Did the insurance company pay out?
the insurance company paid out, the collision shop paid out, and the driver of the other car paid out as well, or their insurance company paid out as well. That is, you want to talk about a long read. You read that entire court case. It's massive.
So then you enter in saying, okay, we want to fix the car properly.
Yeah.
Well, and so now you're a collision shop or even a mechanical repair shop. Most of us work on all makes, all models, or, a lot of makes, a lot of models.
Yeah, for sure.
And, if you really want to do OE quality repairs, you got to make sure you got OE quality scan capability and diagnostics capability.
Yeah.
And, the joke that I always tell, it doesn't matter. I'm not picking on any brands, but when you look at aftermarket scan tools, pick a brand, all of them seem to do somewhere between 70 and 80% of everything, but not 100% of anything.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
100%. So there are the times you could have your tool, and especially if the manufacturer requires an OE level scan, you're like, well, I've scanned it. I know what it's telling me, but I'm not 100% sure that's an OE. That's everything the OE tool would tell me.
Right.
Now you can enter into us. You can click a button, give us a call, and now we can link. So if you're working on a Toyota, we'll have a Toyota scan tool in Plano, Texas, plugged into one of our devices, connected to the internet, to our device at the fender of your car, and exactly like if we were car side with you with that OE tool, we can run that scan for you. We can generate a report of what that scan's telling us. You want us to do something about that car, like reprogram it or reflash a component on it, we can do that all with the OE tool. So it's OE quality, OE, recognized as the proper operation.
That resonates because David Stovall from Toyota was talking today, and that's one of the things he brought up.
Right.
Is he said, like, hey, everybody keeps saying that the tool won't do this and the tool won't do that, but you're not using the Toyota tool.
Right.
I understand in some cases it's not reasonable to you look at Zentry, right?
Yeah.
Anybody's going to go buy that. I mean, you better work on a lot of Mercedes-Benz to make that work, right?
And that's the whole thing. So you got a choice as a shop. You can, when you think about the investment you got to make to have all these OE tools and then keep them all updated and keep them all current and all that, it's a huge expense where you can basically pay us by the drink, which translates directly into the repair order. So, it really shouldn't cost you anything, right? It just should be, hey, I'm put back in it. I'm paying them $140. I'm charging $250. It's all good. Whatever those numbers look like, and you're getting the OE quality scan and or reprogramming event or whatever.
Right. And so you mentioned as you walked out a few minutes ago that you guys are looking more and more at the general repair side too.
Yeah. So again, they've kind of cut their teeth on collision. They're doing very well there. They're like the name in collision doing this. And like any company, they kind of say, where do we go next?
Right.
And a lot of these functions that we're doing, they do on the collision side, they do a pre-scan, a post-scan with full report about what they found and what their recommendations are. And then, of course, this reprogramming. We're going to look at all those things and bring aspects of them over time into the mechanical side. So, reprogramming is kind of the easiest. It's kind of like, reprogramming a car that's been involved in collision is much the same as reprogramming it because of a mechanical failure.
Sure.
So that's probably the first thing we'll be focused on, but you can look for other aspects of what they do to be kind of trickling over as we define, because some of these do have a lot different use case in the mechanical side than it does in the collision side, right?
Right, for sure. You've been in this industry for a long time, and you've seen a lot happen. When you look at the future of our industry, what do you see as far as roadblocks or things that the average shop owner, be it collision or be it general repair, what are you seeing that you think we're going to run into as far as these challenges over the next couple of years?
Well, it's interesting you ask that, because that is probably the root of why I joined Repairify, because what I see is exactly this, I got involved with reprogramming cars 20 years ago at Delphi. Right. We tried to make a run at it, and there were a lot of them then, but it's exponentially exploding now because not only are you fixing cars that have an engineered in problem that were solved by a reflash or a new program, but a lot of the parts that we're buying from whoever we're buying our parts from have to be programmed to work with the car that you're putting them in. Right. And what I see with the evolution of EV or HEV or plug-in hybrid or whatever it is, it feels like these reflashes to fix problems is becoming more and more prevalent. And so, and I think that the challenge that shops are facing is how do I get into this? Oh, and I should mention ADAS. I mean, ADAS is blowing up, and that's another service we actually do is we help condition that vehicle for either a static ADAS event. If they've got the tools and stuff, we can help set it up to get it right, or we could set up a dynamic. So we touch all those sorts of things that shops are still largely saying, I don't do enough reflashes today to warrant spending a lot of money on OE tools and the software it takes to keep them up, but I can pay somebody, buy the drink as I need it. So we think that's an interesting model. We think it solves a problem that is here today, but I think over the next decade, that's going to become more and more commonplace. I mean, I'll tell you an old story. This is before reflash ever was a thing. So I'm running my shop years and years ago, more than I want to admit. There's a 1984 Oldsmobile Calais that pulls in. Right. And they just bought it from a dealership that I did a lot of work for. And they said, look, this thing's got a chuggle in it at 42 miles an hour. It just kind of feels like a lean surge, right? Just a little bit. And I drove it and I said, I feel that. And I popped the hood and I see new spark plugs, new coil packs, I said, oh gosh,
somebody's been at it with the parts
Somebody's been at it. And so I kind of did some preliminary work on it, and I said, I just don't see anything wrong. So I went back to the dealership because I had a good rep with them, and looked up we used to call it the Oldsmobile Service Guild tech bulletins back then. Right. And sure enough, the story is, and I looked up all the old repair history. The original owner had complained about that problem at the dealership under warranty. Right. They told him couldn't be fixed. It was common on that vehicle. It was always there. Yeah. So they learned to live with it. They lived with it for 3 years, traded in the car. Next owner, in the meantime, during that 3 years, there's been a back then it was a prom. Right, that fixed that problem. And what it was the torque converter clutch was coming in too early, and they just
causing it to chuggle down a little bit.
It was just giving a little bit too much lug on that little 4-cylinder engine, and just like stick shift where you threw it in fifth too fast.
Right.
And they came up with a new prom that just reprogrammed the TCC to kick in at 45 instead of 42. Problem gone. Right. So the new owner of the car, and that's what we see happening, is sometimes you buy a car and it's got some funky characteristic. You learn to live with it. There's no fix. Well, the time the next owner gets it, there might actually be a fix, and now they're complaining about it, and we can solve that problem.
Well, one of the things that I often think about is for instance, you look at a BMW. Right? Yeah. Because if you go in with ISTA and you don't know what you're doing, and I learned this from Seth Thorson years ago, like I can't remember what tool I was using, but I was using something else, and it would make you flash the whole car. Right. Well, it's this massive, massive, massive file. Yeah. And there's a high likelihood something's crashing midway through. Even at the dealerships.
Exactly. They would put the battery maintainers on them and start them at night and hope it was right when they got in the next morning. Right. Absolutely.
The cleaning guy didn't trip over the USB cord, And so I remember talking to Seth about that and thinking about how powerful it was having someone who knew the ins and outs of that car to be able to say, whoa, stop. There's a different way you need to handle this. Right. You need to do something different here. And so I think that is a key advantage, especially when we're looking at, I'm not willing to call it a tech shortage, okay? I don't think we have a tech shortage. I think we have a skilled worker shortage as a whole, and I don't think that we've done a good job of raising up the next generation of skilled workers, be it plumbers and electricians. And when we got here, I went over here and there's a little restaurant down by the marina. Didn't know it was John Wayne's favorite restaurant. Right? Oh, wow. And so I'm in there eating, and this real estate broker guy, he comes over and he's sitting down, he's eating. We start talking. And I said, I was in the automotive field, and he said, I tell you what, he said, these skilled trades sure are getting hard to staff, aren't they? And I said, He said, we can't find plumbers. We can't find electricians. We can't find carpenters. And he said, it's causing the price of them just to go through the roof.
Sure.
He said, we can't find people to do the work that needs to be done. And so you think about that, and then you think of a product like this in a repair shop that the owner doesn't have to be the know-all guy,
Right.
doesn't have to be a master-level technician, or the staff that's there doesn't have to be able to do that.
Right.
They have to be able to hook up a battery maintainer and plug a tool into the car.
Right.
And then they can be coached through the rest of it. And I think that's a big thing.
And that's a really good point because, like we talked about, the choices are either you buy all these tools or you use a service like ours. Buying all those tools, as you just said, is an investment in itself. Not many people know how to, because they all navigate differently. They all function differently. A Toyota different than a Mercedes, different than a Chevy, different than whatever. And on our end, you tie in with the tool and also with the right tech that knows how to operate that tool. Now, he's not probably the guy that's going to help you fix the car, but he'll help you make sure that the tool's giving you the information that you need to get the job done.
Right. What about this moving information? And I feel like you have something to say. Do you want me to let you talk? I feel like there's a little bit of moving information right now. And a great example is there's some stuff with Nissan and AutoAuth and or their new authorization process.
Right.
And they're coming out with Consult 4. That's brand new.
Yep.
We're hearing a lot from the aftermarket who says, it doesn't feel like there's any standard at all. Not like we want all the manufacturers to be the same, but it seems like your website's over here and it says this, but that doesn't line up with what I'm doing.
Right.
And then this is over here and that doesn't line up with this. And it seems very convoluted to make your way through all this.
It is very convoluted.
I wish they would come up with a way to sort of standardize some of this information.
Yeah, and that's an interesting comment. One of the things that we were proposing way back when from autocare even was trying to standardize just the way that they handled the security in getting access to the vehicle. Because I can tell you, these scan tool companies, I don't want to name names, but I think all of them probably fit this bucket, is we'd always have an innovations budget, right? A certain amount that you spent on trying to make your tool better than the next guy's, or at least more amenable to the workflow of the shop. And almost all that budget got taken up when like you said, one car company starts putting in their secured methodology of getting access to information. Then another one did a completely different way. It takes a huge amount of effort. And on these embedded tools, it's not so easy. It's not like a PC. These are not big, robust PC platforms with 16 gigs of RAM and multi-terabit hard drives. They've got to make this very compact and bulletproof. And we will always proposed a standardized way of getting to that information so that people could do it one way and then still have a budget to try to improve the actual usability of the tool. Now, I guess the counter of that is, and I think the gentleman from GM that was doing the cybersecurity talk today kind of said, well, if you have one standard, if somebody cracks that standard, they can get into any car on the road. Now, I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about the cybersecurity issue, but I know that if you're, sticking with the latest and greatest ways, there's, as soon as you say it can't be cracked, it's going to get cracked.
For sure. There's no way around it. And, I thought he had a brilliant presentation. I really do. And you could tell he was passionate and he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
He really did know. A lot of times with some of those from those organizations, it turns into lip service, right?
Right.
And he knew. And he was very, very passionate about what he was talking about. And I enjoyed it because networking is kind of where I got into all this. So I enjoy seeing that and seeing the infrastructure and see how they plan to put that in. And I was saying to David, I said, here's the thing. Okay, the car, if you're next to the car and you plug into the car, that's one way you could hack it.
Right.
The other way you could hack the car is if you were close enough to it that you could detect a network and you could try and get into that network because you were close enough to the car.
Right.
But the only other way you get to that car is A, if you either know its address, or B, you have access to something that does know its address, right?
Right.
And there's only one person that knows that, right? So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the infrastructure that needs to be secured, in my opinion, is probably not necessarily in the car itself.
Right.
It's with the corporate storehold of the information and the ability to communicate back to the car.
Yeah, there's that. And, of course, there's the, I think that when you get into the, and I guess as we're talking about it, there will be some standardization, right? Because as you get more close to the V2V and V2X type infrastructures, they're not going to deal with, hey, I'm going to talk to a Ford this way and a Nissan that way
Correct.
and a Toyota. It's just not going to happen. So I think that evolution will force some standardization. But when you get into those are what have to be secure, because he didn't say it, but he was alluding to that's the nightmare scenario. If somebody really wanted to wreak havoc, they could get into one of those systems, get into a bunch of cars and shut them all down at the same time.
Exactly.
And then go do whatever they want to do that's now bogged down all the emergency vehicles that could have gotten to wherever they wanted to get to.
Right.
That's the nightmare scenario.
Yeah, for sure. And if somebody was trying to attempt that, that's where they'd go before they went anywhere else.
Exactly.
Right.
Because otherwise they're going to be, even if you just messed up a single vehicle, unless it's a person of super high importance or something that you just wanted to target, they're not going to. Like you said, it's very difficult to hone in on where that vehicle is at any given time and get into the bus and do what you want to do.
Right. And beyond that even, right? So, and I guess one of the conversations was about auto auth. And in the group the other night, there was a comment and somebody said, I didn't think this NASTIF thing was going to hit me this quick. And it's hit me. And somebody said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, I've got this 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee in the shop and I can't communicate with it. And everybody in the group's like, it's not NASTIF. That's auto auth. Like, you need to set up an auto auth account. And
that's not just auto auth. That's MegaCAN too.
Well, it is. But I guess my point is that as that conversation played out, it became clear that
the guy had an old ass scan tool and that's all he was trying to use.
Right. But I mean, he had zero clue. And there's a lot of people in the industry that don't have a clue. They don't have any perspective.
Seen the vehicles. They haven't seen the vehicles. Your average vehicle is 7 years old?
Yeah.
So you're starting to see them now. If your average vehicle is 7 years old, it's now that the parking brake calibration on the back of those FCA.
Well, and to your point about the newer technologies, ADAS again is one of the things that I've been worried about for a long time.
For sure.
And on the collision side, they're probably way ahead of the mechanical side because they see it more often. Yep. But on the mechanical side, I talk to shops all the time. They have no clue. They're like, well, they take the old approach of saying, well, I don't really work on ADAS stuff. It's too new for me. I'm sticking with whatever. And I said, you don't understand. If you replace the radiator condenser on a car, you're likely messing with the ADAS because you had to move that radar out of the way. I'm not saying you did the job wrong, but you just by moving it and putting it back,
you've now needs officially done it wrong.
You've officially done it wrong unless you follow that with a recalibration event. And that's one of the things that Repairify really does well. On the collision side, we have this product called ADAS Think. And we can identify you, give us the VIN, we can get you down to the trim level of the car, and we know what that car was equipped with for ADAS. And then on the collision side, we also know, or we can take a pretty good guess, that depending on where the car was hit, which of those components most likely were affected. So these are the things we'll recommend to you before you put it back on the road to make sure it's right. And that's one of the things you'll see us dabbling with.
Really cool.
Looking into the mechanical side too, just to whet your appetite a little bit.
Well, I mean, that's really interesting. Because
what you need to do is make that available for freezies. For anybody to go in there with a van, and then here's the information, because now you've got a lead source, and then you can sell your services to that shop. I'm just throwing that out there. Hey, everybody can go on this website, and then you can capture email and shop name and all this. You just have to have an account. And then for free, you can see whether that vehicle has got ADAS or not, or what ADAS system. I don't think there's a vehicle sold on the road that doesn't have some.
Right. Today, I think that's correct. I think
22, 23, 24s.
I think 100% of them now have backup cameras.
Yeah, they have
right?
to.
Yeah.
And that was 2023, I think, wasn't
something like that.
Yeah, but backup camera, if it's like pointing up to the sky, it's like, I love backup cameras. It's the best thing ever. But I'm saying as far as safety, like specifically, I think at the very least they're going to have some type of automatic stopping functionality, even if it doesn't have adaptive cruise control. I think it still has emergency stopping.
A lot of them have emergency stopping now. Yep. And let's just say we're going to take that under consideration. We'll be thinking of all the ways, because we do realize that the and one of the reasons, frankly, that I'm here, that I'm with the company, is to help us figure out the best way to get into the mechanical side. And and we want to make sure that we're making the shops a better shop and making sure they're taking better care of their customers. And we'd,
hey, we can program the vehicle for you. A lot of people are in that space right now. They may not be using OE stuff. That's a good angle. Hey, it's going to be strictly OE. We're not using an autel or whatever. Like, this is going to be strictly OE. So that's one good angle. But for some people, they're not going to care. Then we're like, hey, is it going to work, or yes or no? But having that as a backup for ADAS calibrations, because I don't know, it happens. You have one scan tool, it will not program.
Yeah, right.
You have the same set. At the end of the day, the only thing you're doing is setting up the little doodads in a particular spot for the car to be able to read it. That's it.
Right.
So when you're doing the measuring and all that, all you're doing is, hey, I'm going to put this in the right spot.
Yes.
So when I hit that button, it zaps that little doodad, and then it calculates that, okay, I'm now calibrated. I'm good to go. Yep. So all that rigmarole is just setting that up. You can do that with any kind of device as long as you've got the right plates, because some of the companies are selling sketchy plates. But make sure you got good plates. You got good plates. Now it's whether that scan tool will push that calibration through or not. And it's a roll of the dice. You have no idea.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I've got this scan tool. It should do it. Will not calibrate. Will not calibrate. Will not calibrate. And you're like, it starts.
Well, the OE tool will. Absolutely.
The OE tool, unless there's an actual problem.
If the OE tool won't, there's another
there's an actual
problem.
issue. Yeah,
usually there'll be a code associated with that, but
if there's an actual problem, you scan it and there's a code. But I'm talking like no code, no accident. You took the front bumper off to do a condenser, like you're saying.
Yeah,
you put it back on. You're like, okay, I got to do a calibration. You're hitting the button, it will not work. And so you grab the second scan tool, and that second scan tool says, hey, F you don't even pay $1,000 for just ADAS side of the scan tool. And you're like, well, the scan tool's up to date. I paid for the subscription. No, ADAS is an extra $1,000. Okay, fine. So then you put the ADAS on, then you hit the button, it still doesn't work. And then you go to the third scan tool, and you're like, okay, now I'm on scan tool number 3. Scan tool number 3 worked. And so
this sounds like frustration out of actual knowledge.
So I'm saying, like, having that as a backup, but then you have to make sure to roll the cost, the potential cost into the fee.
We were doing that with the iScan on any programming events, things like that. We roll that cost into it.
Right.
One thing
you just assume it,
and that's one thing. I mean, you just kind of touched on something that's kind of important. As shops, we hope, and it's worked on the collision side. We hope it'll work on mechanical as we get into it. As they understand how efficient it is to have somebody running the OE tool that knows how to use the OE tool, that gets to you, and it's like, you don't have to schedule these things with us. We'll just do it on demand and get it done, rather than come to us at the end of it when you've tried 2 different scan tools and all that. We can drive efficiency into that shop, and you drive the cost right into the RO. It's just part of the service. And everybody's happy. You've always got an updated, ready to go scan tool on the other end,
and somebody that's been doing it with that tool and knows.
Now,
hang on, I got to put this out there before you move. Okay, all right, I'm going to say this. Please. One of the only beefs I have with software as a service or programming as a service is when the price changes, and the reason I say that is because when we were
far in advance,
when we were using or when we used that service, the price. They would come in and they would be, hey, our standard price is this. Mm-hmm. And then something would happen and they'd be like, oh, well, that's not our standard price. It's this much. And then, oh, that's not that much because it's this much.
Yeah.
And it made it impossible to like price it properly, because we were getting stuff that like the standard price was $150. Yeah. And then they'd pop up and they'd be like, no, this is $400. Who told you it's $150? Well, it's listed as your thing. Well, you probably should just buy the yearly subscription. I get it. I probably should. But the point is like it makes it very difficult. So
you got to pass along the cost to the customer, and you don't want to be calling them 3 times, telling them, "Hey, I told you this much, but I meant this much."
Well, that's really good input, and just I don't know exactly where that's all going to settle out, but I can tell you we're having a lot of discussion about that, and we're pushing it exactly like you said. I mean, the way I look at it is kind of like flat rate. We're going to set a price, and some of them we're going to probably do okay with. Some of them we're probably going to lose our shirts a little bit on. But
the other thing too is if you do have the ADAS calibration requirements listed out per VIN, if you can map out what's static and what's dynamic, because you're going to have, especially if the shop doesn't have the plates.
Sure.
If the shop doesn't have the plate, but they see, hey, we can still do that job because it's dynamic, I can just call in. And then they'll set it up for me, I'll go, and we're done. Versus, that's static. We can't even do this repair, or we have to sublet.
Right.
At least they'll know up front, hey, we have to sublet these 3 calibrations, and the place that I use charges per calibration. By the way, folks, if you're not charging per calibration, I will come through this mic and choke the ever-living life out of you. Per calibration. Per calibration.
You know, that's something that I don't know if you've heard about this or you've seen this yet, but we have talked to hundreds of shops that went and invested in ADAS calibration equipment, only to find that the local dealer
charging $150 flat
because they had to buy the equipment according to the dealer agreement. So they just didn't pay, like they'll pay the technician by the hour, but they're charging regular alignment fees to do whatever calibration the car needs. And so they're telling clients, no, you don't need all that stuff. We handle everything right here. It's $179. It's alignment and calibration. And so they pull it in, and it's a loss leader. Right. So it makes us in the aftermarket look like a bunch of liars because we're saying, no, this is a $400 calibration.
Right.
And they're like, no, we'll do it for $179. And that is a bad feeling when you get a call from somebody that says, hey, I just went to the dealer and they did it all for $179.
Assuming they even did it.
Yeah.
I would immediately challenge them with, hey, did they show you documentation?
Do you remember the Scott Brown story? Did you ever hear the Scott Brown and the coffee story?
I don't recall that.
He rented a car and it had been in a collision. And so as he got in the car, he drove away from the airport and he goes under this underpass. And the forward-facing radar's facing up at the bridge. So
I think I do remember that now. I think that was actually at another association meeting down in Florida, as I remember.
I think it was.
It was a Nissan, I believe it was.
Yeah.
They found out that one of the previous renters had bumped it and replaced the grill, so he didn't want to report it. So the rental company didn't even know about it.
Yeah. And it stopped the car because as he went under it, it thought that the bridge was a car in front of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Sketchy.
Yeah, it is sketchy.
I don't know what you're going to do about the dealerships. The dealerships can screw off. Half the time, they're not even doing the calibrations; they're just scanning for codes.
Well, the good news, what we find, especially when you're, the pricing's one thing, but my experience or what I hear from people with the dealerships is that A, nobody in the aftermarket wants to send their car to a dealership to get that service done, and B, if you do, you go to the back of the priority list. So you got a car for a day and it'll sit there for 3 days waiting for the calibration, but you don't want to turn it loose to the customer until it's done. So nobody's happy.
I read a comment in the Service Advisor subreddit, and they were talking about work in a dealership. And he said something to the fact somebody was talking about, man, I'm so stressed out. We're 5 days out and I can't keep up with keeping the clients happy. They're laying people off in the dealership. We're slammed, but we're really having a hard time moving work. And this other guy said, you're only 5 days out. We're like probably 5 to 6 weeks out right now.
Right.
And everyone echoed that sentiment. Like, yeah, we're out 5 and 6 weeks. We don't even care. Right. And so it makes you think, well, if that is the service model that they're getting, does this allow a lot of these independent shops to paint themselves as the expert in that area?
Yeah, that's an interesting approach. And, I'm going to probably speak on the collision side. Yeah. Repairify actually is in that business as well. We have I don't know how many we have, but we've got a number of we call these hub and spoke operations where they just kind of focus on calibrations and things.
Right.
We also go into certain shops, high volume shops, and we'll plant the equipment, the tech, and they'll kind of attract the business from the local shops. I've got a friend of mine runs, you probably know him, down in Maryland that has the 6 shops down there.
Yep.
And they've done the same thing. They've got a calibration center and they're just kind of hub and spoke in it for the smaller shops that aren't ready to invest yet, but want that service done. So there are ways around it. There are people that are creatively figuring it out.
Definitely. And I think that this is something we're going to have to navigate as our industry progresses, as it changes, as it develops. It's pretty neat that they came to the market with something like this. Now, is it using a specific Repairify tool, or is it using what is the pass through? Is that something that a shop buys from you and then? Yeah.
So there's a couple things. First of all, I think I can spill this. If you have a launch tool, that's the later one with this the smart VCI, it's got a little display on it, Bluetooth to the tablet. All you have to do is get that initialized for us, and we can actually work through any of those tools.
Okay.
We also have our own all-in-one tool that has a full scan tool tablet with that, so you get a couple of options there.
Right.
And we're working with other tool folks. We really don't want to necessarily compete in the scan tool business.
Yeah, for sure.
We'd rather be hey, everybody that's got a scan tool, just embed this bit of logic in there and allow us to come in as needed, and we can take care of those problems for you. So we've got a one that's definite right now, and another one's kind of in the wings, and we're talking to some others. So that's where we really want to position ourselves.
I think about it, and I think about all the shops who have not invested in any technology over the past however many years.
Why do you think launch doesn't get mentioned? Because somebody asks, hey, what's scan tool like? And everybody will recommend the Autel, like the 919 or the 909. And then the second option is what? What would you say the second option is?
Top down?
Top down, yeah.
Hey, Hawkins going to shoot me for saying this. The good thing is that you're getting a launch if you get a top down. He's going to come in here any minute screaming and cussing about
Is that true?
Yeah, that's what and they're getting away from that, but that is
initially that's what it was.
Yeah, and it still is right now. Is top down is I'm right about that, aren't I?
I'm not sure.
Why are you throwing that out there?
I'm not going to get into a branding argument.
We had this conversation last night.
I just know that we're very comfortable. I guess it's an interesting thing that we did, because we've got a big relationship with some of the salvage yards and things out there. Mm-hmm. We built what we call the rules engine. So when you plug into a car, get the VIN, we can pretty much tell you if that launch tool will allow us to do an OE compatible scan. We'll still build the report. We'll still charge you a little bit, not as much as if you do the whole OE thing, but we'll say, hey, this car that you're hooking up to, you don't need to go to the OE tool. We can give you a robust scan that's equivalent to what you get on the other side. And conversely, we'll say, hey, you're plugged into this car. We really recommend the OE scan. This tool just won't quite give you the results you're looking for, or the depth, I guess I should say, of what you're looking for.
The scan is one thing. Sometimes it's the coding, right? Because I'll be honest with you, like we scan a vehicle, and if that code or those codes are not related to the customer's concern, and we don't go down that rabbit hole, because otherwise you will. Now on the collision side, that makes sense. Like you have no idea what's been there, what's not there. Right. Is this a problem? Was it caused from the accident? Do I need to dig in? But on the repair side, don't give two flips. That sucker is there, could be there, doesn't seem to be causing a problem. I'm not touching it. I'm not, because the minute you do, it goes and creates more problems. So,
well, the worst thing is when you actually fix a problem that was causing those codes, but you didn't fix the original problem. Right. That's when you're in real trouble. I always made sure I fixed the original problem, but then I'd say, you got these other couple codes. We might want to let's
document everything. Yeah. But sometimes you scan the car though, and you're just the scan says what it says. I don't know that you dig that deep into it. But as far as wanting to know whether, hey, am I going to have to do a full program, or is this just initialization, or is this just coding?
Right.
That information is unbelievably vague.
Oh, man.
And you just have to know.
It is awful.
That, hey, I need the OE scan tool, or I don't need the OE scan tool. And then sometimes it's just, you have the scanner, the button's there, but the button don't do jack. You're hitting the, parking brake, FCAs. I don't know what the hell the deal is with those stupid cars. You're like, hey, initialize, go. Nope, that didn't work. Next scan tool, you flip it, grab the next one, go. Nope, that didn't scan tool. Now you're 3 scan tools deep. Then you pull out the J2534 pass through, And you're like, okay, well, now we're going to hook up Y-Tech to it. And then you find out that your J-Box doesn't have MegaCAN because it doesn't have the new protocol.
And how much time have you spent up to this point?
I know, right?
About 45 minutes. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Probably more than
45
that,
minutes.
honestly.
Where you could have just pushed a button on our tool and come on in, and you'd been sending that vehicle down the road, and you'd be working on your next car.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you.
We
Get behind it, man. Let's get behind it.
we used our programming as a internet service a while back, and I vaguely remember the rep that they were talking to said, "Hey, listen, you can disconnect the battery, you can do all of these other things, but if the auxiliary battery is still hooked up, and you open or shut the door to that car, and the back calipers are off that car, even if it's in service mode, it will blow the calipers out of it."
That's the
right?
thing.
He's
Yeah.
like, "You need to know." And so a few weeks later, another shop that I know calls me and he said, "Hey, got a situation here. Same model car, not the car we worked on, and it had blown the back calipers out of it."
Wow.
And I said, "Man, that sucks. I wish you'd have called and asked. We could have told you that that's a thing." And he said, "I didn't know." He said, I'm going to call the dealership and get some calipers." I said, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea." And he called me back 2 hours later and he said, "The calipers are $1,900 a piece."
Wow.
But here's the thing. The aftermarket calipers, hit or miss whether they'll actually work or not, whether they'll actually calibrate, because they might work. They look great, perfect. They may not calibrate. Or if they do calibrate, they lock up or they drag. Yeah.
In this particular case, the shop owner called me back and he said, "You lied to me." I said, "What?" He said, "You told me I couldn't put those things back together." He said, "I took it all apart and there's a screw in there." And he said, "I just screwed that thing back and put it back together." He said,
Yeah,
"I
you
put
can-
that car back together." And he said,
rebuild them.
"Everything's just fine."
Yeah, it works just good. Yeah, you can. Sometimes. You try it. You never know. You never know.
I'm not much
And here's the
about
thing. Here's the other
trying
thing
with
too.
safety equipment.
Sometimes, no, it's not safety equipment. Like, does the parking brake work? Yes or no? Good.
When the caliper has blown all the way out and I don't get any seals or anything.
No. You got to put new seals in it. Oh, yeah.
And I'm over here like trying to fight the lip seal back around the
No.
outside the caliper.
Yeah, you get a new seal in there. The other thing too is if you screw up any of that process, it needs a new module. Luckily, the modules aren't very expensive. It's like $100. Throw a new module on there, calibrates
like
it out the door. I hate parking brake. It's so you're doing it. You're going by service information. It says to do A, B, and C. You do A, B, and C, and then in the C, everything goes to shit, and you have no idea. You're like, you're charging the customer for just a standard brake job. That's it. And they might be like a 0.2 or 0.3 for parking brake resetting the reinitialization of the parking brake, whatever. You just throw a couple ticks in there because that's all it should be. It should be a button. You hit a button, done. No. Like, hey, it's not a caliber. Or this one side's going, or it's throwing this random code. Oh, jeez. Every time. I hate electronic parking brakes. I want to punch the guy who came up with that stupid idea.
Don't you tell us what you really think.
You don't want to do that? Oh, God, you've done it now.
Seems like you're sugarcoating it a little bit.
I don't know what they eliminate, the cable. That's it.
Yeah.
Because they made the calipers overly complex. They had put electric motors on the back of them, right? Then they had to introduce a module and then all the wiring. Versus what? A cable? A cable! That's it. Just done. It works.
I don't exactly understand the logic of it myself. I guess it's because people weren't using their parking brakes, so maybe they were replacing parking paws or something.
I don't. Do you think that's what it was?
Who knows? I have no idea.
No, that can't be it. I need answers, Ben. I need answers. Why? What happened to the parking brake cable and the lever?
Can't help
or
you
the
at all with
pedal?
that. But I do remember, I'm old enough to know that I worked on a lot of products, Camaros and Firebirds of the day. Remember, nobody would use the parking brake, and that little worm screw would get stuck, and you'd have to,
frozen.
and the regular brakes
Yeah.
would get real soft because they weren't expanding into the rotor properly.
But when they put the parking brake into the caliper, because I hate the little baby drum brakes, those things can screw off too. I'm talking about the caliper with the little screw thing and then the cable, and you pull on the cable and that little thing comes out, and then the parking brake just works. And then sometimes on a Honda, you'd have to adjust them After 200,000 miles, you'd have to go in and adjust them. That's it. They worked. They were super reliable, and you had to have a special tool to screw in the caliper. That's it. That's it. Simple.
Have we? What is it that we've traded
to put his car in reverse? You have to push the lever forward. Does that make any sense? That is stupid. Every single time I get out of the car, the parking brake sets in my car. In my rental, it's a Mazda. It sets automatically. And if I move the lever back, by the way, because that's the way God intended for that. Your car is an abomination. It is an affront to God Almighty himself. Anyway, I put the car in reverse. The parking brake turns off on its own. Now, I have enough sense to go, hey, I should pull the parking brake on. But apparently they said, no, we got this for you. I need the car to drive for me. I don't want to pay attention. I want to play on my phone. That's what I want to do when I drive. I hate driving. I don't want to drive. I don't need the parking brake nonsense. They over-engineered that way too much. I need the car to drive itself. Work on that. I don't need it to set the parking brake. Stupid.
I'm glad you got that off your chest.
I'm still, it's not fixed though. I want it fixed.
I wish I could mute him really quick. Earmuffs, David. Don't ask about square cup holders. Okay, whatever you do, don't ask about square cup holders and keys.
That doesn't make any sense, square cup holders. And here's the other thing too. I hate the buttons
That's
on the side.
literally putting the round.
Yes, it's stupid, right? Stupid. Thank you. Idiotic. Stupid. And the other thing is the buttons on the side of the key fobs. I don't get that. I gotta look. Top one, side, no, but my vehicle, my FCA, big fat buttons on the top of the thing. Like big fat buttons. I can hit it, not these little tiny slivers on the side. What are you doing? You've got all of this real estate. Do something with the real estate. It doesn't make any sense. You're going to make the key fob the size of a credit card, but then you're going to use the side to make these little teeny tiny buttons. And then you're going to get rid of the auto start, like the little button, the remote start thing. It's not even a feature on this thing. The car will drive itself, but starting the car from 50 feet away, no. These new cars are junk. They're junk.
Are you done?
I'm sorry, you got me started.
I don't think I can help you with any of that.
It does make you question: have we, as a motoring public, asked for things in the automobile that maybe we didn't need for functional necessity? And one of the things that
you need to punish the manufacturer by not buying this junk. That's all you have to do.
So,
square cup holder. Hey, I'm sorry, I can't buy this car. It's got square cup holders.
Now,
show me a car with. We don't have any cars with circle cup holders. I can't buy your junk vehicles. Then I'm sorry. And then they need to do what they do to us small businesses. What do they do to us? They get on social media and they make a stupid video or a TikTok or whatever, blasting us, small businesses. They don't say anything about the cup holders. Do you see them blasting Kia for making square cup holders? Oh no, Kia's here. We can't talk. Who's not here? FCA. Stellantis? Do you see them blasting Stellantis for doing some stupidity? No.
At the end of the day, I can talk about this now because you don't work for the other company anymore. We're sponsored by Shopware, the shop management software. And one of the reasons that, and David's the one who told me about this, and it's the reason that I adopted them. They didn't put a button just everywhere that somebody asked for a button, right?
Right.
They kept it super simple. They kept it unique, but it was easy to use. And it was really about being able to bring anybody into the shop at any point in time and say, here you go to work. Right.
Yep.
And one of the things about that I've noticed is that there's a lot of shop owners who just keep asking for more and more and more and more. They don't realize the cost of what they're asking for. They add complexity to it and they make it more than it needs to be. And to a degree, I've got to say I agree with him because we've asked for so much technology in the modern automobile that it's insanely expensive to fix them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and first of all, I know Carolyn well at Shopware. We're actually friends.
She's awesome.
She's awesome, and I think she's had a very unique approach at shop management. And I do. I mean, it's not for everybody, but I think it's a really nice system. And again, to your point, in my prior life, what we looked at when people would ask us, and I think this is probably a problem that maybe the car makers and companies do, is you listen to somebody verbatim, you say, oh, let me go fix that. Or what we always did, back to the visiting shops and all that, is we would say, that's a condition that they're reporting. They're saying they want this, but what are they really trying to fix? And we would try to dig in and say, look, I know what you think you want, but the way to solve this, there's usually a more elegant, simpler way to do it. And that's what we didn't always get it right, but we always tried to. That was always our focus. And that's what, we're going to try to do here, is make sure that we get it right. And anytime that you can work into a process that works the way the shop is used to working, the way that they want to work,
100%.
Instead of saying, to make this work, you got to jump through hoops and do these other things, is going to be a win. And back to your point about the cars, I don't know how many of these things have been asked for by actual consumers, and how many of them just some smart engineer said, hey, we're going to go do this. Right. They're going to love it. This is a feature they don't even know they want. And do they really?
And so it ends up in all of us questioning if engineers are actually smart or not.
We just need a car manufacturer, somebody to come up, a startup, just like Lucid and Fisker and all these companies. But what they put out is essentially like a 2002 Crown Victoria, like rear-wheel drive, super big, basic engine with lots of space around it. Not the reliability of the engine of a Ford, but Ford's here. I'm sorry.
David took it very, very personally when Terrence said, you shouldn't be bashing us manufacturers. And David's like, I didn't bash shade. Those two.
Yeah. Well, we never throw shade at Honda. Honda and Toyota.
The good news about your Crown Victoria thing is at least the new cars that have high voltage batteries in them are as heavy as that Crown.
I know, that's true. I'm going to tell you, I did try to jump a Crown Victoria one time. They are very heavy cars. Very heavy.
Jump
cars.
it?
Yeah. I've got some.
Jump started?
No, he's talking about leaving the earth.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something. When one of those cars, and I think that's why they use them for police service for so long, because I'm going to tell you what, when that sucker hits the ground at 100, it plants.
Yeah.
It
There's nothing to the car. And it's super.
Man, they were good cars.
I don't know about good cars, but they were simple. They were simple cars, like cheaply built together, slapped together. Everything was like accessible. I think you go back to that and you go, hey, this is the anti-Tesla.
I'm going to say this. If we went back to that kind of car, you wouldn't need me anymore. So we're going to get off that subject right now, right? Okay? We're going to move on.
Car. It's just one car. We'll just have one manufacturer. I think you get a Tesla. They put out the product. Tesla's when they released Model S, like 2007. It's been around for a long time. The 2007. It still looks essentially the same. They changed like the front end a little bit, but it's essentially the same car. But it pushed everybody. Sure. Like, oh, we have to have an HEV. I don't think it was the Prius. The Prius didn't do it. Although a Prius has been around a long time. It wasn't the Prius. It was the Tesla. It got popular. Elon got popular.
Tesla, I have mixed feelings about Tesla, but I will say I give them a lot of credit for proving that EVs did not have to be boring.
Yeah.
That's what because everybody else before them had said, hey, we can make an electric vehicle. We can make it practical and economical and as exciting to drive as a, go-kart.
Right.
Yeah.
But Tesla did. And, you whether you like them or don't, everybody should drive a Plaid once.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a feeling that you don't get in any other car. That's a fact.
Yeah. So we just need the opposite of that. To take the cars back to the most rudimentary level and say, hey, there's nothing there. It's got lights.
Or hear me out. You can move to Russia.
What?
Cuba. You can move to Cuba.
Well, the problem is that over time we have gotten ourselves some conditioned, and we could debate about the electronic emergency brakes, but people people, I mean, honestly, we've kind of stupefied people, right? You're driving, you see these cars driving down the road without their headlights on. It's because somebody didn't think to turn on the headlight switch because they're so used to the car doing it, by themselves. And it rains, and they're like, "Well, why'd you hit that guy?" "Well, I couldn't see." "Did you know there's a windshield wiper you could turn on?" I mean,
how do I turn my bright lights on?
Exactly.
They've always come on by themselves. We talked about it. At
Okay,
lunch.
that's a cool feature. That is a cool feature.
It is.
Driving around those mountains. You ever been up to Shopware's area?
Never have, but I spent a lot of time in North Carolina.
So
my family's from there.
There's no lights. There's no anything, and the roads are just winding, like 90-degree turns every 5 feet. 90 degree, 90
and
degree,
off of them is like
degree.
a 4,000 foot.
Yeah.
And
down.
so having I'm driving, I've never had it in a car because I drive older vehicles because I'm sane. Anyway, so the car just flips the high beams, low beams on its own.
Yeah.
And it turns off when it sees another car. That's cool. Super convenient when I have no idea where I'm going, and I'm going to die if I make the wrong turn. So having that was nice.
And they're nice because if you turn the car off the road, you'll see where you're going as you're launching. So you get a nice aerial.
I will say if it had that capability, and I know the luxury vehicles do, that it'll swivel on top of going up and down. Perfect.
So we often talk about there's areas in my community that you don't go, right? And so I had explained to David that, hey, one of the main roads, so 321 coming up the mountain into Boone and Blowing Rock, there was a rock slide that closed it. 105, there was a rock slide that closed it the same day. 194 at Valley Crucis, there was a house that burnt down, and so they closed 194. 421 was the only road open in or out.
Wow.
But so if you go from Charlotte to Boone, when you go up, you go across 77 up 421, it adds an hour to your trip. So I said, hey, don't do that. Just come up the gravel road.
Google had figured it out. But you're driving down this road, and at one point it says pavement ends. You're like, am I supposed to keep going here? And Google's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Just go. You're like, oh, okay. And yeah, I mean, a pavement, and it turns into a driveway. You're driving on a driveway, but it's, winding up and down. Coming back, I drove like you because I was familiar. So, and the thing was doing its automatic thing. I was flying down the road 50, 60 miles an hour, just.
You do have to remember in that area that there are still deer.
Yeah.
I wasn't slowing
Google
down
Maps
for any
will
deer.
will not tell you about.
There's some stickers around here that say "Listen, dear," so that would probably fit in pretty well. Well, I told him, I said, David, I said, whatever you do, I said that those roads that we talk about that you don't go down up here. When you turn on this road, don't ever turn off any other road. Just go straight until you see a stop sign, no matter what you do. So,
okay.
Thank you for being here.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Of course.